There is a ghost that lives inside your house. You don't know its name, but you know its presence. You feel it in the dead of night when an inexplicable sadness settles over you like a shroud. You feel it in the moments of your greatest triumph, a cold whisper in your ear that says, "This isn't real, you don't deserve this, it will all be taken away." You feel it in the arguments that erupt out of nowhere with the people you love, a venom in your own voice that you don't recognize. So you do what any sane person would do. You run. You renovate the house. You paint the walls a brighter color, buy new furniture, install brighter lights. You fill the rooms with noise, the television, the podcast, the endless stream of distractions. You invite people over, hosting parties, creating a frantic, vibrant energy to prove the house isn't haunted. You build a beautiful life, a perfect life, a persona so convincing that even you, for a moment, believe it. This is your life's work to outrun the ghost. But the ghost is patient. It doesn't live in the walls or under the floorboards. The ghost lives in you, and the more you run, the stronger it gets. The renovations become acts of self-sabotage. The bright lights just cast longer, darker shadows. The parties leave you feeling emptier than the silence ever did. You begin to see the ghost's face in the people around you. You see its malice in a colleague's passive-aggressive comment, its betrayal in a friend's thoughtless remark, its abandonment in a lover's need for space. You start pointing fingers, labeling them as toxic, as hidden enemies, as the source of the haunting. You cut them off, building walls not to keep them out, but to keep your ghost in. And one day you find yourself utterly alone in the most beautiful, well-decorated, and silent prison imaginable. And the ghost is there, sitting across from you. It has your face. It is your pain. The pain you refuse to acknowledge, the trauma you buried, the shame you locked away. And it has grown into a monster, fed by the very energy you spent trying to escape it. This is the central, brutal paradox of the human condition, a truth so profound that the great psychologist Carl Jung dedicated his life to its exploration. The thing you are running from is not your destroyer. It is your liberator, trapped in a monstrous form. And the moment you stop running, the moment you turn to face it, is the moment it begins to heal you. This isn't a comforting platitude. This is the fundamental law of psychological transformation. Today, we are not going to talk about coping mechanisms or positive thinking. We are going to talk about the terrifying, courageous, and non-negotiable act of turning around. We are going to dissect why you run, what happens when you run, and how to finally stand your ground, because only then will you understand that the pain you thought was a curse is actually a key. First, we must perform an autopsy on your escape. We must understand the anatomy of running, because it's not as simple as avoiding a dark alley. It's a sophisticated, unconscious, and full-time job. Running from your pain is the very architecture of the life you feel stuck in. For many, running looks like relentless ambition. You are the high achiever, the one who never stops. You collect degrees, promotions, accolades, and possessions like talismans to ward off the feeling of being not good enough, a feeling that has been gnawing at you since childhood. Your persona is one of ironclad competence. You are the reliable one, the strong one, but in the quiet moments, the engine sputters. You feel a bone-deep exhaustion, a sense of being a fraud, terrified that one day everyone will discover you're just a scared child wearing an adult suit. The pain you are running from is the feeling of inadequacy, and every achievement is just another layer of soundproofing on the door to the room where that feeling is screaming. You don't heal the inadequacy, you just get better at decorating the prison. For others, running is a chameleon act. It's people-pleasing. You have become a master of social psychology, not to connect, but to protect. You read people's micro-expressions, their body language, their subtle shifts in tone. You morph into whatever they need you to be, the good listener, the funny one, the agreeable one. You do this because your core pain is the terror of rejection and abandonment. You learned early on that your authentic self was too much or not enough, so you buried it and created a series of masks. The tragedy is that when people love your mask, you feel no real connection, only relief. And when they dislike your mask, it confirms your deepest fear that you are inherently unlovable. You live in a state of constant low-grade anxiety, your energy draining away with every inauthentic smile, every forced laugh, every swallowed opinion. You are running from the pain of not being seen by ensuring you are never truly visible. And for some, running is perpetual distraction and numbness. The endless scroll, the binge-watching, the drinking, the casual sex, the video games, the drama, anything to avoid the deafening silence of your own mind. The moment there is stillness, the pain surfaces, the grief you never processed, the anger you were told was ugly, the loneliness that feels like a physical void. So you orchestrate a life of constant noise. You become a connoisseur of the trivial, an expert in other people's lives, a spectator in your own. This isn't leisure, it's an anesthetic. You are not resting, you are hiding. Your life becomes a series of waiting rooms, waiting for the next hit of dopamine, the next distraction, while the untreated wound inside you festers. This is the anatomy of the run. It is self-sabotage disguised as self-improvement. It is isolation disguised as self-protection. It is numbness disguised as peace. And all of it is fueled by one terrifying misunderstanding, that your pain is a predator. But Jung taught us something far more unsettling. The pain isn't the predator. It's a part of you. He called it the shadow. Let's be brutally clear about what the shadow is. It is not evil. The shadow is the vault in your unconscious mind where you have locked away every part of yourself you deemed unacceptable. Your rage, your envy, your greed, your vulnerability, your weakness, your untamed desires. It is everything you were taught to be ashamed of. When you were a child and you expressed raw anger, an adult may have punished you or shamed you. So you learned, anger is bad, I am not an angry person. You took that anger and threw it into the vault. When you felt jealous, you were told it was ugly. So you learned, jealousy is wrong, I am not a jealous person. Into the vault it went. But the vault is not a bottomless pit. It is a living, breathing part of your psyche. And the things you lock away do not die, they fester, they starve. And a starving animal is a desperate animal. The longer you run from your shadow, the more monstrous it appears and the more desperately it tries to get your attention. This is where your life begins to feel like it's being hijacked by an enemy force. The shadow begins to project itself onto the world around you. This is one of the most critical pieces of psychological insight you will ever receive. The things that infuriate you most about other people are often disowned parts of your own shadow. Consider the man who prides himself on being calm, rational, and in control. He despises emotional, dramatic people. He finds them weak and manipulative. He cuts them out of his life, complaining about their toxicity. What he fails to see is that his own unprocessed grief, his own legitimate rage, his own deep-seated emotional needs were locked away in his shadow vault decades ago. He is terrified of them. So when he sees them expressed in others, it triggers a violent allergic reaction. He isn't reacting to the other person. He is reacting to a mirror of his own disowned self. He spends his life fighting a phantom enemy in the world, never realizing the war is inside him. He sees hidden enemies and frenemies everywhere because his own hidden self is screaming for recognition. Think of the woman who is a martyr, sacrificing everything for her family and friends. She is endlessly giving, and she secretly despises people she perceives as selfish. She rants about their narcissism, their lack of consideration. But her shadow contains her own legitimate need for self-preservation, for boundaries, for putting herself first. She was taught that her needs were selfish, so she buried them. Now that starving, disowned part of her screams in protest every time she sees someone else honoring their own needs without apology. The hate she feels for the selfish person is actually self-hatred, projected outward. It is the cry of her own neglected soul. This is how the shadow sabotages you. It doesn't just make you miserable, it makes you blind. It ensures you will repeat the same destructive patterns over and over again. You will keep attracting manipulative people because you have disowned your own capacity for righteous anger and boundary setting. You will keep ending up with emotionally unavailable partners because you have disowned your own vulnerability and need for intimacy. You will keep being betrayed by fake friends because you have not yet owned the part of you that is desperate for authentic connection, and so you settle for a convincing performance. Your shadow, the pain you are running from, will continue to burn your life down from the inside out until you stop, turn around, and face it. This is the moment of truth. This is the confrontation. The confrontation is not an act of aggression. It is an act of profound curiosity and courage. It is the decision to stop labeling the ghost as a monster and instead to sit down with it and ask its name. It is the beginning of what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming a whole, integrated individual, rather than a fragmented collection of acceptable traits and a hidden dungeon of unacceptable ones. So what does this confrontation actually look like? It is not a one-time event. It is a practice, a discipline. It begins with radical self-honesty. It begins with looking at the people and situations that trigger the most violent emotional reactions in you. That person who fills you with inexplicable rage, ask yourself, what quality in them am I refusing to see in myself? Is it their arrogance? Perhaps you have disowned your own healthy pride and ambition, labeling it as arrogance. Is it their weakness? Perhaps you have disowned your own vulnerability, your own need for help, because you are terrified of not being the strong one. This is not about condoning their behavior. It is about using your reaction as a compass, pointing directly to a map of your own shadow. It continues with conscious integration. This is the work. Shadow work is not about becoming a rage-filled, greedy, selfish person. It is about reclaiming the energy tied up in those repressed traits. Imagine your anger. You've locked it in the vault. Now you consciously decide to unlock the door. You don't let it rampage through your life, screaming at your boss and your family. Instead, you sit with it. You might write about it in a journal, unfiltered. I am so angry that. You let the feeling move through your body without judging it or acting on it. You ask it, what are you trying to protect? What boundary has been crossed? What injustice are you pointing to? When you do this, something magical happens. The raw, destructive energy of rage, once acknowledged and listened to, begins to transform. It refines itself into its higher expressions, the power to set firm boundaries, the courage to speak truth to power, the fuel to fight for justice, the passion to protect what you love. You haven't eliminated anger, you have integrated it. You have taken the raw iron from the shadow and forged it into a sword of discernment. Imagine your envy. You see someone with a life you want, and a bitter, ugly feeling coils in your stomach. The old you would have run by gossiping about them, devaluing their success, or sinking into a shame spiral. The new you stops. You face the envy. You admit it without shame to yourself. I feel envious. This feeling is here. Then you ask it a question: what desire are you showing me? Envy is a distorted compass. It's pointing to something your soul genuinely longs for. Is it their creative freedom, their financial stability, their loving relationship? The envy once faced is no longer a poison. It becomes a roadmap. It clarifies your own ambition. It says, this is what you want. Now let's make a plan to build it for yourself. This is the alchemical moment. This is how the pain begins to heal you. You stop wasting monumental amounts of energy suppressing these parts of yourself. That energy, once liberated, becomes available to you for building the life you actually want. You are no longer running a psychological marathon every single day. You are standing still, and all that power flows back into you. This leads us to the great paradox of healing. When you stop running from your pain, it doesn't just disappear, it transforms. The shadow, once confronted and integrated, becomes your greatest source of power. The monster you were running from holds the very qualities you need to become whole. The gold, as the alchemists said, is found in the dark. Think of it this way: the persona you built, the perfect you, is competent but fragile. It's one-sided. It's like a warrior who has only trained his right arm. He might be strong, but he's fundamentally imbalanced and easily toppled. Integrating the shadow is like training the left arm. It's about embracing the ambiguity, the darkness, the things you don't like. The result isn't a monster, it's a complete warrior. When you integrate your weakness and vulnerability, you don't become weak. You become capable of profound intimacy and connection. You are no longer terrified of being seen as imperfect, so you can finally allow someone to truly know you. Your relationships transform from shallow performances into deep, resilient bonds. When you integrate your selfishness, you don't become a narcissist. You develop healthy self-respect. You learn how to protect your energy. You can say no without guilt, not because you don't care about others, but because you finally care about yourself. You stop attracting manipulators and users because your energy field broadcasts a new message. I am not a resource to be plundered. I am a sovereign territory. When you integrate your fear, you don't become paralyzed. You become courageous. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting in spite of it. By facing the fear you've been running from your whole life, the fear of failure, rejection, inadequacy, you metabolize it. It no longer has power over you. You can take risks, start the business, ask for the date, write the book, because you have already faced the worst-case scenario inside yourself and survived. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman named Alara. From the outside, her life was a success story. She was a respected lawyer known for her sharp mind and relentless work ethic. But her personal life was a wasteland. She was on her third marriage, and it was crumbling just like the others. She had a pattern. She would meet a kind, gentle man, and for a while things would be good. But inevitably she would grow to resent him. She would find him weak, passive, and unambitious. She would provoke fights, belittle him with sharp, cutting remarks, and eventually he would leave wounded and confused. Alara would then tell her friends, I just attract weak men. I'm tired of trying. Her pain was a deep, searing loneliness, and she was running from it by trying to build the perfect, strong partnership. But her shadow held a secret. Alara's father had been a tyrant, a loud, aggressive, domineering man who terrified her as a child. In response, she vowed to never be like him and to never be with anyone like him. She threw her own aggression, her own assertiveness, her own capacity for dominance into the shadow vault. Her persona was one of cool, detached, intellectual strength. Her shadow, however, was starving. It projected itself onto her partners. Because she had disowned her own masculine, assertive energy, she was unconsciously desperate to see it in a man. But because she was also terrified of it, she chose gentle, safe men. Then her starving shadow would erupt. The The cruelty and criticism she leveled at her husband's was the cry of her own disowned power, despising the passivity she had chosen out of fear. She was recreating the dynamic of a tyrant and a victim, but this time she was the tyrant. The turning point came during a bitter argument with her third husband. He didn't fight back. He just looked at her with profound sadness and said, "Who hurt you so much that you need to hurt me?" The question shattered her persona. She spent weeks in a dark night of the soul. For the first time, she stopped running. She turned around. She began the terrifying work of looking at her own shadow. She had to admit, "I have a capacity for cruelty. I have a capacity for dominance." She didn't act on it. She sat with it. She journaled about the rage she felt as a child toward her father, rage she had never been allowed to express. She grieved for the little girl who had to be strong and silent to survive. Slowly, she began to integrate that fierce energy. The raw aggression transformed. It became an unshakable sense of self-worth. The need to dominate became the ability to lead with integrity in her career. The cruelty became a sharp, protective instinct for her own well-being. She learned to set boundaries with kindness but absolute firmness. She and her husband separated, but for the first time it was without venom. It was with a sad, clear understanding. She spent a year alone, not distracting herself, but getting to know her whole self, the light and the dark. When she eventually started dating again, she was a different woman. She was no longer attracted to weak men or terrified of strong ones. She was whole, and because she was whole, she attracted a whole person. A man who was both kind and strong, gentle and assertive. A man who was not a projection of her shadow, but a partner for her soul. Her pain, once she stopped running from it, had literally healed her by forcing her to become the person she was always meant to be. So how do you begin? How do you apply this to your own life right now? Here are the tools for the turn. This is your practical guide to stopping the run. First, become a detective of your own projections. For the next week, carry a small notebook or use an app on your phone. Every time you feel a disproportionately strong negative emotion towards someone, intense anger, disgust, irritation, or judgment, write it down. Don't analyze it in the moment, just log it. Felt intense rage when my coworker took credit for my idea. Felt deep disgust at that influencer's fake positivity. At the end of the week, look at your list. For each entry, ask the terrifying question, what is this showing me about my own disowned self? With the coworker, is it about your disowned ambition or your fear of self-promotion? With the influencer, is it about your own repressed desire to be seen and validated or your own disowned optimism? This is not about excusing their behavior. It is about reclaiming your power from the reaction. Second, schedule a meeting with your pain. Literally, set aside 15 minutes in your calendar. Find a quiet place where you won't be disturbed. No phone, no music, no distractions. For those 15 minutes, your only job is to sit and feel whatever comes up. If it's anxiety, let it be there. Don't try to fix it or breathe it away. Just observe it. Where is it in your body? What does it feel like? If it's sadness, let the tears come. If it's a hollow emptiness, sit with the void. This will feel excruciating at first. Your mind will scream for a distraction. This is the addict wanting a fix. Your job is to sit through the withdrawal. You are teaching your nervous system, moment by moment, that you will not die from feeling your feelings. You are proving to yourself that you are strong enough to hold your own pain. Third, practice conscious journaling, not gratitude journaling. Gratitude is fine, but shadow work requires a different tool. Use these prompts. What am I pretending not to know? What truth am I avoiding today? If my anger could speak, what would it scream? If my sadness could speak, what would it weep? Write without a filter. Write the ugly, petty, irrational thoughts. Give your shadow a voice on the page so it doesn't have to scream through your actions. When you are done, do not judge what you have written. Simply close the book. You have witnessed it. That is enough. Fourth, reparent your inner child. Much of the pain you run from is the unhealed wound of a child who was not given what they needed. When you feel that old pain surface, the feeling of being worthless, abandoned, or unseen, visualize yourself as a compassionate adult, turning to the small child within you who first felt that pain. Speak to that child. Say the words they needed to hear. I see you. You are not bad for feeling this way. I am not going to leave you. I will keep you safe. This is not silly. It is profound psychological repair. You are giving yourself the unconditional love you never received and healing the wound at its source. This journey is not easy. It is the hardest work you will ever do. It requires you to abandon the simple narrative of good guys and bad guys, of victims and villains. It requires you to take radical responsibility for your own inner world. It requires you to look into the abyss of your own psyche. But the alternative is to keep running, to spend the rest of your life decorating your prison, to keep attracting the same painful situations, the same toxic people, the same patterns of self-sabotage, to live a half-life, a performance forever haunted by a ghost that has your own face. The choice is yours, and it is a choice you make in every single moment. The moment you lash out in anger, the moment you scroll to numb the anxiety, the moment you bite your tongue to please someone else. In each of these moments, you can choose the old path, the path of running, or you can choose the new one. You can choose to stop, to breathe, to turn inward, to face the feeling. When you stop running from your pain, it begins to heal you. It does not just patch you up. It breaks you open, melts you down, and forges you into someone stronger, wiser, and more whole than you ever thought possible. The pain is a signal that a transformation is ready to occur. It is the cracking of the seed that must happen before the tree can grow. Do not run from it. Turn toward it. Welcome it. For in the heart of your deepest pain lies your greatest power, your truest self, and the beginning of the life you were always meant to live. The haunting is over. It is time to come home.